how to make an app to use for data collection in the field. So a couple things you're going to need to make an app, or make it this way anyway, is a SharePoint site that you can make a SharePoint list in, and then permissions to read and write to that list. So I'm starting out here in Teams because the way IT has designed our teams is with a SharePoint site attached to each team. So if you have a team, you have a site already that you have access to. So if you want to play with this, you can do it in there. We actually have a different SharePoint site for our materials than this team materials site, because we've been using it since 2017, I think, instead of whenever the DOT decided to roll Teams out. So one thing to understand is Teams is actually SharePoint. You just don't see it that way because it's a different interface, but that's what it is. It uses SharePoint in the background. So if I go into any one of these teams that I'm a member of, and I'm just gonna click here. I was in the aggregate reports channel, but it doesn't really matter. You can't do it in this top level. It doesn't show open in SharePoint, but any channel that you go to, general or anything, you can click on the three dots and then go, well, oh, sorry, that's the wrong three dots. So up here in the upper right-hand corner, you can click on the three dots and open in SharePoint. I'm only doing this so that you know how to get to a SharePoint site that you can use to play around with this. All right, so now I'm in the team-d1-materials SharePoint site. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this link because since we have two, sometimes it's hard for me to remember. So Control-C to copy, and it's sites team-d1 material. I'll try and remember that. All right, so then the first thing I want to do is create a list. Well, how do you create a list? First, you need to go to Site Contents on the side here. That will show all of the different document libraries and lists you have within the SharePoint site. This one is, again, the team site. So it keeps all the documents and site assets in these document libraries. I want a new list. And a list you can think of as like an Excel file, where the columns across the top are the data that types that you're putting in, and then the rows down are each data entry. So I can start with a blank list, or I can start with an Excel file. If you already have some data in an Excel file and you want to start with that, you can do that. In fact, that's in many cases easier. But here I'm going to just start from blank. So what's the list of my name of my SharePoint list? I'm going to go demo app creation. What's the list about? I'm not going to fill that in, and I'm going to take it off of the site navigation. I don't want to show over here for everybody else to see that I'm making lists and apps and stuff because they'll just be confused. Okay, so now it brings me to a new list. The only column that is required is title. And title is a little bit weird as far as column types go. In fact, you can't go in and change much on this column type, where you'll see if I add a column, I can make it a text column, a choice column, date and time, person, yes, no, whatever. Where this one is just a single line of text, and you can change the name, but in some places it still shows it as title. So it's just a weird column. So I use this for, like, if you put a sender's number or a barcode or something that's always going to be unique, like a key column, I will use the title column for that. So let's just say that that's going to be, I'm going to rename it to test number. And I try not to use spaces. It gets a little confusing in some places. So sometimes I'll use an underscore. Sometimes I just use the caps like this. Try not to use spaces. And so let's say we're gonna have a test number, and we're gonna have, I don't know, let's say another text column with comments. And a single line of text works best for all of these things. You can put in a default value if you want. And I think I skipped over, you can put in if it's required or not. So let's say that there's a yes, no, or let's make it a choice. Not quite sure how this is going to work. We'll see. So condition will go good. Average and 4. I'm not sure I've ever created an app with choices in it before, but we'll see. And then I want a date in here. So condition shows up, and then let's do a date and time. And then on that date and time, I'm just going to put so there's several dates and times that you'll run across. So I'm putting inspection date just to be clear. It's a date and time. Maybe I don't want the time, which is include time, no. And then default value, I want today. And okay. All right, so now I have a simple list of the test number, the comments, what condition it's in, inspection date. So I could put more in here. I'm trying to make this super simple. So the next thing I want to do, I have the list. The next thing I want to do is do a Power App from the list. So if I can go into Power Apps as a separate application where I'm in SharePoint now and create a new app. The easiest way to do it is from here. If you create your list of items that you want to keep track of, and then go integrate Power Apps, create an app. What's the name of the app? Demo app. What it'll do is it'll churn for a second, and it will make standard, what they call a standard 3-page app. So the first page of the app shows you all of the data that you've collected under this list. The second page will show you the details of that data. So maybe the first one is the first page is just showing you when it is and I don't know, the condition. And then when you click into that, it shows all of the data, which would, I mean, this is simple, so it doesn't make a lot of sense. But if I had 20 pieces of data and I used a date and a location or a date and a project, and then I click into that from into the second page of the details page, then it shows me all of the data that I collected, and it gives me an edit button on that page. Then the third page is the edit page, or the new screen. They call it the edit screen, I guess, where you can put in a new entry, or you can edit an existing entry. So here's an example of that page that shows all the list items, which there are none. The detail screen that shows would show you the details of the one that was selected, and then the edit screen to put in a new one or edit the details of one that you've already done. So again, it comes in, the app is all created. Now you can go in and you can tweak as much of the stuff as you want. Do all kinds of crazy stuff with it. But out of the box, this works. So if I hit the play button, or I think it's called preview up there, I can then choose a tablet. That's what it will look like on the tablet. This is what it'll look like on the phone. That's weird. Showing me the tablet and phone together. I don't know. Huh, weird. That's what it usually comes up with. And then let's say I had an iPhone 13 that's longer, it would show me that. We have SEs, so that's what I always use. All right, so there's nothing to display. I click X to go back to the main screen because I'm looking at the edit screen here, I think. Something's wonky. All right, let me go back to the browse screen and I will hit the preview from there. And it shows me the phone. Okay, there's no items in there. If there are a bunch of items, you can also search, and you can customize which field it's searched on. It just takes a little, practice to get that figured out, right? You can turn the list around. Right now, I want to make a new item. There's no items in my list. So I think that I called this a sender's number. Here's an example of where I renamed it. I think I named it test number, but it came back with title. So I could go back in and change that. But that's like I said, that title column is just a little weird. So let's call this 1ML 2023, and today's date is 10/27, and it's the first test I do today. So that's my sequence that I'm going to use for sender's number or test number. And for comments, so I can put a comment in there, the condition. So this is where I made this column a choice column. I can drop it down and I can choose my condition. And you'll find the same with the yes, no buttons. The yes, no turn just automatically comes in as a slider, yes, no, or checkbox, whatever it's called. I can't remember what some of the others come in. You see here it has inspection date. Well, this is kind of weird because as 2001, I expected that to be today's date because that's the default. I would have to look into that, why it's doing that. But if I click the calendar, then I can click the day and click OK, and then it puts today's date in. There are currently no attachments. If I click attach now, it's going to open up my files, like downloads or something, to let me pick one, and I could attach it to the item. If you're doing this on the phone, when you click attach file, it gives you the option to attach a file from your phone or to open up your camera. So super simple if you're doing an inspection and want to add a picture. That's how you do it. It's all built in, baked into the automatic app. So now I hit OK, and there's my first entry, and in the browse screen. So I could search for items that, let's see, there's no 5 in that number. So if I type in 5, everything disappears. But if I type in 23, I thought, oh, that's right. If you, out of the box, it searches by the first of the numbers. You have to do a little work to get to search by anything in the middle. So if I type in 1ML, it'll still show up there because that's filtered it down to everything that starts with 1ML, but it won't do that. Say it ends in what, 7001, and now it won't find it. So that's a little code change that you have to make if you want it to search by anything in the contains operator, essentially. So that's it. Within, what's my timestamp here? 13 minutes now. I've created a list in a SharePoint site and hit refresh here. I created a list in a SharePoint site, and what? This is hilarious. It lets me do all this stuff and then wants me to sign in. All right. I created a list in a SharePoint site. I made columns in that list of the data that I wanted to collect. I created an app that collects that data, and then you can see here that it's pushing that back to that list as we go. One thing you have to do if you want to use it outside of PowerApp's creation tool here is you have to publish it. So I'm going to close out of this preview. And first of all, I'm going to save it because that's a different step than publishing it. That's just saving your work. I'm not quite sure. I would think that it would give me some kind of feedback that shows that I did save it. What's it going to change here? Let's change something just so I can see it. Give me the save icon back. So on the edit screen, I didn't like where it said title there. So this is a form, and that's why these buttons here pop up when I choose form, because I could actually make my form be part of the page and then have buttons down here. So that would be like static on the page. And then these are the components of that form. So if I go in, oh, I need to use the caret to expand it. And then here's where title data card is, and the caret to expand it again. And then if I click on these things, it'll show me which pieces they are. So I'm wanting to edit this piece right here where it says title. And so I've highlighted it here. And now it's not as easy as it's easy to change it, but right now what it's doing is it's locked because it's inheriting that title from the parent or the detail screen. So I could unlock that here and then change it. Somehow I've done this before, I just don't remember how. Unlock properties. Unlock to change properties. I thought that's what I did. Well, anyway. Oh, there, I just changed it. So instead of title, I can say test number. Oh, it doesn't like that. Interesting. I'll go back. Anyway, I was just wanting to change something so that I could resave it to make sure that it actually saved. Okay, so it shows a little circle as it's saving, and then a ghosted out save icon once it's saved. All right, so that's step one. When you've worked on it, you have to save it. And then step two is to actually publish it so other people can use it. So this is the version will be published. Describe what your app does. I'm going to publish this version. And then when I go back, kind of got to be careful when you're not sure if it's done doing what you told it to do. And that's where this PowerApps has been a little bit weird. Okay, so I've saved it, published it. I'm getting no feedback that the publish worked, but I'm just going to go ahead and leave here. See if it, make sure it's saved. It's warning me, hey, this might not be saved. And that's what I'm saying, as I've seen that over and over again, and I don't know why. All right, so now if I look at my apps, my demo app should be showing at the top, which it does. And when I click into that, I don't, maybe I didn't. So it's asking about sharing my permissions for this SharePoint site so that users of the app can write to it. And then there's the app itself, but that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to not play, not edit, maybe it's details. Yes, some of the details of the app. That gives me this QR code that I can scan, and that will take me to the app on my phone and allow me to, if I'm logged into Microsoft, allow me to use that. There's also a web link. If you want to use that, you can embed it somewhere so that your user can open that up. They still have to be signed in, but they can open it up from a web browser. And then the user can also install PowerApps on their phone, which is an application, an app for their phone, and then they can go to this link or this one, either one, and it will like load that into their PowerApp, so it'll be there for them to use. So you could use a share button to do that as well. So if I shared this app with someone and they opened it on their phone, it would open it in the PowerApps app. So I can also share with somebody else to be an owner so they can change it, or I can share with users that can't make changes, but they can use the app. So I'll make Frank a co-owner, and he'll get an email notification if I leave this checked that shows that he's now the new co-owner of this app, and he can play around and make changes as he wishes. So one thing to consider though is I just shared this app with him, which also shares the resources of the app. So now he has access to the District 1 Materials Teams site. So just be careful when you're sharing with people that you're also giving them permissions to use different parts of your SharePoint site. So that is how to create an app in 20 minutes.